Hi, and welcome back to Roaming with Restless Women. Today I have Angela Tipton. Angela, at 19 years of age, was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, but she refused to let her chronic illness define her. She's ambitious and career driven and has built a successful career over the next decade after she turned 19 with various Fortune 500 companies in the biotech and life sciences industries. Challenging industries. I've consulted with them before. While building her career, she maximized her income, made significant financial investments, and paid off $85,000 of student debt in just 18 months. While optimizing her savings, she learned to live below her means so that she could live life on her own terms. She started her first business in 2017 and today focuses her efforts on helping people achieve financial freedom through their careers at fireyourcareer.com. She's passionate about building a career to fuel a fire lifestyle, and we'll tell you what that means just in a few minutes, because she believes that everyone deserves to live life on their terms. In her free time, she enjoys yoga, running, and traveling. She lives in Salem, Oregon with her husband and her two little boys. Welcome, Angela. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks for having me, Julie. I'm excited to be here.
Terrific. So you are a financial guru, as it were. I love how you developed the fire, I guess, fire mantra or methodology. What would you call it? Fire.
Yeah, so I'll just start by explaining the fire movement. And I am not the inventor of the fire movement. I can't claim that at all. It's one of
Okay.
those that I came across. But when I learned more about it, I was initially very intrigued. I'll admit I was a little skeptical at first because I thought this isn't feasible, right? Can people
Uh-huh.
actually live this way? But the more I learned about it, the more I realized that actually a lot of these concepts are pretty practical and very actionable. And it starts with really just living very simply, living below your means, growing your income so that you can achieve life on your terms. So the FIRE movement, for anyone that is just learning about this for the first time, FIRE stands for financial independence, retire early. Now, the retire early is one of those things I like to consider kind of optional because some people are very passionate about their careers. I've always been one of those where my career has fueled me and it's excited me and I've loved to do it. That said, your career can be very flexible and nimble based on what your goals are. And it is the thing, whatever it is you're doing, whether you're working on your own pursuit or you're working in a traditional career, you can use that to gain financial freedom and have flexibility so that at some point, if you decide, you can retire early if you choose. And that gives you so much flexibility. You can retire early and just spend time on an extra long vacation or enjoy more time with family or pursue a passion project. Or you can decide to make a career pivot and experiment with something new. Maybe retiring early isn't really your thing and you just want to continue diving forward into your career. What ultimately doesn't matter is what you do with it, is having that freedom to choose so that you can live life on your terms. And that's what makes me excited about FIRE.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and I work as an executive coach with senior women leaders. And a lot of them, are at the point of what do I want to leave as my legacy? What do I want to do next? And so part of my coaching, a lot of times, is actually helping them transition. One of the things that I hear a lot from them is define retirement. Is retirement when I start drawing my retirement, from the government? Is that what retirement means? Is it leaving my full-time job? Is that what retirement means? So I think a lot of people are actually redefining what retirement means. And so this goes right into what your specialty is helping people figure that out too, in looking at what's next for me, and it could be anything within these particular boundaries. That's great. I love that. So tell me a little bit about how you got into this business and how you actually paid off $85,000 in
Yeah.
student debt.
Yeah, so I started a very traditional career where I always, as a kid, wanted to be a scientist. So I decided to get my degree in science, and eventually I just did decide to make a pivot, but I worked with various companies in roles ranging from lab technician to lab manager. Eventually I made a pivot into more of a business focus and got into marketing. But along the way, I always loved to read. And as I learned more about the fire movement, as I kind of hinted at, I grew intrigued. One of the first books that I came across really started to expose me to this idea that this is even possible. And that was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that
Yes.
was one of the first books I read. And he didn't call out fire, but the concepts are very similar.
Hmm.
Another one that I read later on down the road is A 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. And that was another one that just really opened me up to these ideas. And again, I was very skeptical when I started reading these books, but I was also really curious, and I started to wonder, how are these things possible, and how can I apply some of these concepts to my life? And one of the things I started by focusing on was paying down my debt. Now, when I graduated with my degrees, I went to private school, which was very, very expensive. And between my husband and myself, before we really committed to paying down our debt, we combined for, I think it was around $135,000 worth of student debt. It was a lot of debt. And at the time, as students, you go into school and you think, okay, well, I'm going to get a good job and I'm going to pay it off, which, we're told that story as early as high school. And so we believe it. But the reality is that when you get out of school, it's a whole nother thing entirely when you're starting to pay it off. And I did, when I graduated with my undergraduate degree, I struggled to make those monthly payments. And it was something that I
Hmm.
was really embarrassed about, because I believed that I was failing, that I was struggling in something that I should have been able to do, or at least that was a belief that I had at the time.
Hmm.
And I had to go on to a graduated repayment plan. I had no other way of being able to afford that payment. So I started from there, barely being able to make even my student loan payment, to then all of a sudden paying off $85,000 of student debt in 18 months. And the way I did that is I took it step by step. I decided one day when my husband and I walked into our accountant's office, I looked at a piece of paper that said, I can write off this much money of my taxes for the student loan interest that I'd paid. And I remember looking at it at the time, realizing that, wow, I could pay for a cruise vacation with what I paid in my student loan interest. And that was kind of this awakening moment for me, where I realized
Yeah.
I don't want to continue to do this. This is a waste of money that is going nowhere. I'd rather have that cruise vacation than paying for this every year. So it was really that moment that made me realize that, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on. We're going to get rid of this once and for all. And by then we'd paid off our student debt to, I think it was about 105,000. So and this was over a period of years that we'd done that. So we'd slowly trickled away at it. And when we got to $105,000, we decided, okay, we're going to do everything we can to pay off as quickly as possible. We started what I still consider one of my favorite tools to this day is a vision board. We started a vision board where we jotted down our different dreams, our goals, the things we wanted to achieve. It's something we still have to this day, as a matter of fact. But one of the
Cool.
things that we did on this vision board is we put a chart that had our monthly student debt. So we were tracking on a month by month basis what that total balance was. So every month that we paid it down, it'd go down a little more, it'd go down a little more. I still have a picture of it. And when we started really committing to paying that off, it went down slowly, little by little. I think 105 turned into 104 the next month, and then maybe it was 103 the following month. So it didn't go down by a lot, but
Hmm.
towards the end, we were able to throw a lot more money at it. We'd built up our savings and some of our investments. And there was one month toward the end where we had saved 10 grand of our emergency savings that we just threw at that so that we could be done with it once and for all. So we
Yeah.
managed to pay off that last $85,000 in just 18 months. We did take on
Wow.
extra jobs to do that.
Hmm.
It was a tall order, but we did it, and I was very grateful for the learning experience.
Well, it's excellent that you had your husband with you on that journey.
Absolutely.
What do you say to individuals who are having trouble with getting their partner on the same boat as them as far as some of these more difficult choices?
That's a great question. And it's really important to have your partner on board with you. And thankfully, my husband is one of those that is reasonably financially savvy. I know that different partnerships exist, and sometimes it's a struggle to find that balance between couples. I do think it's critically important to have your partner on board. On my side, it didn't take a lot of convincing. My husband, when we talked about it, we thought, okay, yeah, that sounds great. We were on board together pretty much from the beginning. But
It's great.
I do think that, yeah, for us, it was great. I know
Uh-huh.
that having heard from others, it's not always the same experience. So what I would encourage others to do, and I did this with my husband even before we talked about paying off our student loans, is that if you have some different levels of financial savviness, share knowledge with each other. There were books that I was reading that I said, here, read this to my husband. And he did. He did that a lot on the investing side too. So really just for yourself and for your partner, financial education is super important. We don't learn
Yeah.
a lot of the basics in school, unfortunately. I wish we did,
I
but
know, it's
um,
crazy.
it is. But that said, it's still important to learn. It helps us function as adults and achieve the next level in our financial goals. So financial savviness, how little or how much you have, is really going to be a big difference maker. So if you don't feel like you have a good grip on what you need to know from a financial standpoint, I recommend a few books. There's a number that I recommend on my website as well. I think
Okay.
reading can be one of the best ways to learn. And don't be afraid to experiment within reason. Don't take crazy financial risks that you're not comfortable with. But when I was learning how to invest, I made some what I consider smaller, safer investments, money that to me was essentially gambling to help myself learn how to invest. And I made some poor choices here and there, but thankfully for me, it was a small amount of money, and I considered it an investment in my learning experience. And it was an experience that paid off for sure. So, yeah, super important to get your partner on board with you in whatever way you can.
And so you mentioned you have two small children. Is it two small children?
Yep, that's right.
Yes. All
Yep.
right. How old are they now?
My oldest is going on 7, and my soon to be middle child will be 4 this summer. I have another one I'm expecting later this year.
Oh, how fun. Congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
had I just had my first grandchild born this past December. I just I can't even tell you how beautiful he
Congrats.
is. Thank you, thank
Oh,
you. But
that's so special.
it is a challenge financially when you have children. I think a lot of people don't realize how expensive kids really are and how much it takes. I know that my daughter and son-in-law were my daughter was not able to breastfeed after a little bit because she had some complications from surgery and had to stay in the hospital away from him, unfortunately. And just buying formula,
No,
it
yeah.
is not cheap. It is not cheap at all, but they didn't have a choice. You have to feed your baby, right?
Right.
So tell me about how you managed to juggle all of these responsibilities along with dealing with, as your bio says, Crohn's disease, being diagnosed at age 19.
Yeah, it's a struggle. And I know that sometimes when we go through the experience of pregnancy, it can be a struggle with our bodies as well. And I really feel for your daughter. That's a really tough experience. And I know that's hard. And I think as women, especially, we tend to be really hard on ourselves. I
Yeah,
know that I put a lot of pressure on myself to breastfeed. And I know that some women, like in your daughter's case, just simply don't have that option for reasons that
yeah.
are out of their control. So that's really tough. But balancing everything, yes, is very tough. It can get really complicated. And to your point, kids are very expensive, just what you pay in formula. And thankfully, I was fortunate enough to be able to breastfeed. I didn't really need to buy formula. I had extra formula on at the house in case I needed it. Never really
Yeah.
needed it. But I was a little bit more fortunate in that sense. But other things are still very expensive. You have your baby food, you have your baby supplies. Diapers are really expensive, and those kiddos go through lots and lots of diapers. And then if you are a working mom on top of it, childcare expenses have just gotten ridiculous. It's
Unreasonable. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I know where I live in Oregon, our childcare costs are just through the roof, and it's just amazing how expensive it's
It's a
gotten. So
mortgage payment, in
it
many
is, it
cases.
truly is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary. So how did
Yeah.
you find out that you had Crohn's disease when you were 19? What were your
Yeah.
symptoms, or what made you go and find that out?
So I started having symptoms as early as 15 years old. So it took me 4 years to get a diagnosis. I knew as a kid that something was wrong, but I didn't know what. I started having just unexplained weight loss, had really bad abdominal pain, had struggled to eat, and felt really
Mm,
bad fatigue. So those were my initial early symptoms. And I had periods where I would have a flare. And at the time, I didn't know that's what it was, but I would
right.
have this flare for, maybe a few months, and then it would go away and I would seem to be okay. So by the time I got testing done, I was already in remission, and the doctor said, "Oh, well, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you."
Oh, great.
But
Don't you love
every
it when
year,
they,
I know. But every year after that, my symptoms got progressively worse. So yes, by the fourth year, my symptoms had gotten so bad that they said, "Oh,
mm,
yeah, by the way, they did this test and they said, well, you have Crohn's." And it was I had different emotions when I got the diagnosis. One was relief of, oh, okay, well, finally you figured out what was wrong with me. So now I have an answer. But
now it's not up
also the
here, right?
right. Well, and that's the thing too, is I was told that at times. I still remember to this
Oh,
day, there was a doctor that implied that I had anxiety and I should go on anti-anxiety meds. And I remember thinking that, I mean, I guess, but that doesn't really make sense. It doesn't, I don't think I'm making this up, and I don't
yeah.
think it's just anxiety. So, yeah, I definitely had that experience. And I have since talked to others that have had that experience. Unfortunately, our medical system leaves a lot to be desired. There's a lot of room for improvement, to put it simply. So I learned that I had to advocate for myself, and I still to this day have to advocate for myself with insurance and doctors and my treatment schedule and everything, despite having a diagnosis, which is to me amazing because I thought that having a diagnosis would make it easier. And
Oh,
what certain things it does, certain things
yeah.
it does, but it's still a fight, and I still have to advocate for myself. So I am definitely one of those proponents of advocate for yourself, as painful as it is, as frustrating as it is. You don't deserve it, but you have to advocate for yourself. Otherwise, you just slip through the cracks, unfortunately.
Absolutely. What do you find the most challenging? And you're getting ready to have a third child, so let's talk about for right now. What do you find
Sure.
is the most challenging in juggling, a chronic disease with all of your other responsibilities, and now especially since you have your own business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot to juggle for sure. So I've constantly find myself needing to refine my balance or refine my focus. And I'd say, different pillars of things that help me maintain the state or where I need to be. So I have my self-care pillars. I have things that I do to take care of myself to make sure I'm maintaining
Mhm.
my symptoms, maintaining my sanity, and all of those things. So I have that. I have my business pillars, I have my family pillars, and I have all of these things. And really, they build this foundation that helps support this whole thing. And there are times where my pillars get a little shaky and I have to spend a little bit more time on them. And when I find that that's the case, I take a step back and I say, okay, this pillar, for whatever reason, isn't going well. Maybe I didn't have as much time for self-care. Maybe I missed my yoga session this week. Okay, so I need to find a different time to do that or refocus on
Mm,
that. So really, that's the thing for me, is making sure I have those pillars in place and then rebalancing them as I need to. And there are times where there are different demands where my family might need a little bit more in a given week. So I have to spend more time on that. That means my other pillars might suffer a little bit more. So maybe the following week I spend a lot more time on those things so I can rebalance. So I'd say constantly rebalancing, checking in with myself, seeing how I'm feeling, how things are moving forward, if everything is getting the time and attention it deserves. That's really been the key thing for me. And it's an ongoing process. It's one of those things that I have to constantly maintain. It's a lot to balance and juggle at once, as
oh,
I'm sure you can
yes.
imagine. But that's what I do, and that helps me maintain what I'm doing.
100%. Oh my goodness. Well, I know that with your career now, that you really are helping other people um, build their own kind of fire methodology or their own portfolio of wealth. Tell me a little bit about what you offer to your customers as they come to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I offer a number of resources, and really what we start with is we start with a vision board and goal setting. So your vision board, it's a no holds barred. You can put anything, even if it seems unrealistic, anything can go on that. So what we do is we focus on developing those vision boards so that you can get really clear on what fire means to you. And to the point that you had made earlier, Julie,
Mhm.
when you get to this point of considering retirement or what retirement means for you, it's one of those things where for a lot of us, it feels like it's in this far off future. As we get closer to retirement, whether it's early or not, we might start to consider that a little bit more. I like to start a lot earlier in the process and think about what does that look like, whether it's early or not. Is it one of those things that you're spending more time with your family, or you said that you're going to go lean into a new career or a passion project, or do you want to travel the world? It's really important to define those because really that is your fuel to continue going. And this fire movement, if you decide to follow it, is not for the faint of heart. You do have to make certain sacrifices, and your vision has to be compelling enough that you're willing to do that and make those
Mm.
trade-offs where it makes sense. Otherwise, you're just, most of us, living at your means, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it means that you probably won't be able to achieve an early retirement if that's important to you. So it's really important to focus on what does that mean to me? What does that vision for the future look like, whatever that is? And it's going to be different for everyone. And that's the way it should be. It's really your
Yes.
vision and figuring out what that means to you so that you can build a plan around that. So we start with that. And then from there, you can build the action steps that you need to take. So if, for instance, you're in a lot of debt, we can look at your debt and say, okay, this is what we're going to focus on first. And I teach different methods to help tackle debt. A few of my favorites are the debt snowball or the debt avalanche, and different ones are appropriate for different people depending on where they're at in their journey and what their goals are. So I can recommend a few of those as well. So
Mm-hmm.
my website offers numerous free resources. I always recommend starting with the free ebook I have, 7 Ways to Fire Your Career. Really simple way to just get started if you're just starting this journey for the first time, or if you're not sure that this journey is right for you. It's a good way to really dip your toes in and see if it's something that's interesting to you and that you want to explore.
How often have you redone your vision board?
I revisit my vision board at least once a year, at least. And sometimes I
Mhm.
revisit a few times a year. And sometimes I'm charting out different goals, like in the case when I was paying off my student debt, and I'm
Mhm.
updating that on at least a monthly basis based on where I'm at with that. So at least once a year, I think once a year is completely adequate. If your goals change substantially or there's a major life change, you might need to change it more often than that, and that's okay too. But I recommend doing it at least once a year.
Give me an example of a couple things that are on your current vision board.
Yeah, so a few things that are in my vision board. I'm really focused on achieving so much of what I want in terms of net worth and in my investment portfolio. So I have, for instance, and I've already achieved this goal. I need to update my vision board. It's a little out of date right now, but I had in my traditional 401k that I wanted to achieve $150,000 investment portfolio. I've much surpassed that. So that vision, that goal
Hmm.
is out of date for sure. But I have other things I want to achieve, like a $5 million net worth, and I'll make progress charts and notes on that, on how much progress I've made to date on that, whether it's 25%, 50%, whatever that is. So but yeah, to the point I made, I need to update my vision board. It's a little out of date. It has some little kid scribbles, which I love. It's the thing that's been making me hold
Good
off
for
on updating it,
them.
frankly.
Oh, good. Well, I don't think it's ever too early to have your kids imagine and
I
dream,
agree.
and if they want whatever, maybe they want for you guys to build a pool in the backyard. I'm just making that up. But,
Sure.
why not put it on a vision board and say,
Yep.
okay, how are you going to help us do that? And I think when kids are involved, they understand better why you're spending time away from them and, why you have to make the sacrifices that you make.
I agree. I agree. My kids are little, so they don't fully understand it yet, but they know of our vision board. They, to the point I made, they make their own little scribbles on it and have fun with it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think it's really important to take your kids on the journey and wherever they are, with whatever level of
Oh,
understanding
yeah.
they have. Yeah, I'm all in favor of teaching kids on what you're doing, taking them along for the journey and the ride, and helping involve them in whatever way they can be involved.
Okay, one final question for you before I ask my three questions that I ask at the end of every episode. My final question for you is, what is one piece of advice or wisdom that you would give to any customer or any client coming in your door?
Yeah, so one piece of advice that I would say is I think it's important that we can all live on our terms. I know sometimes we get to a time and place where we feel like it's not possible, but I will say this is that your dreams matter. They are possible. They're probably more possible than you even realize. Sometimes you just need an action plan for moving forward, and you need a clear vision. So don't give up on the excitement that is your dreams. Your dreams do matter, and they are important, and they do deserve your time and attention, and it is possible to live life on your terms when you're ready to move forward with intention and the action you need to take those steps forward.
You seem to be very determined and disciplined type person. And, that's amazing to me because I'm exactly the opposite. I'm more of
Life
a
throws us curveballs. I mean,
carefree, Oh,
yeah, I mean, life always throws us curveballs, and I think that's the
yeah.
thing that I've learned from having dealt with Crohn's is that it's been a struggle, and there have been times that yes, I've needed to sit back and take a break, but just be honest with yourself and where you're at, and understand what you need, but don't give up on your dreams, because even if you're struggling right now, and I've had my share of struggles for sure, your dreams are still absolutely possible. They just might be a little bit harder to achieve. The way I look at it is when you have a chronic illness, it's like playing life on hard mode. It's possible for me to do all these things. It might just take a few extra steps. I might have a few extra things to consider, things like my treatment plan or making sure I
Yeah.
have rock solid insurance, things like that. Things that if you're healthy in comparison or don't have a chronic illness, at least, you might not have to consider or worry about quite as much. So it's just taking where you're at and taking it to another level. Incremental improvements are a thing too. It just do a little bit better than you did the day before.
And I love the fact that you update your vision board because I think that it does show you in real time and in a real tangible way the progress that you're making. And that's very important to keep going. You have to have that motivation. All right, I have my questions for you.
All right.
All right, close your eyes.
Okay.
In your mind's eye, tell me what you see when I say wise woman.
I see an older woman standing on the beach with the sunset behind her.
Oh, what is she saying or doing?
She's standing proudly and looking ahead and behind her. So behind her are the things that she's achieved and her vision of peace and
Uh-huh.
relaxation. In front of her is her family and all the things that she's achieved and is proud of.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, here's my next question. Where do you like
Okay.
to roam?
Who do I like to, what was that?
Where do you like to roam?
Where do I like to roam? Ah, boy. Probably the beach. That's one of my favorite, I guess, safe havens. It's the place that I go to when I'm doing my mindset work, when I'm thinking about relaxation. It's probably just about any beach. The first beach that comes to mind is I spent a lot of time on the Oregon coast, and we have Haystack Rock, was where one of my favorite places on the Oregon coast is. So that's probably what comes to mind first.
Oh, yeah, I've only experienced the West Coast beach in up near Seattle. But it's
Okay,
so different from what we have here in Orlando. So, or,
it
in
is.
Florida. So,
Yeah.
it was beautiful. I absolutely loved it. All right, final question. What makes you restless, but in a good way?
What makes me restless and in a good way is helping inspire people to achieve their dreams. So I truly believe that the world would be a better place if more people were able to live life on their terms. So that is what I aim to do, is inspire people and empower people to achieve this life on their terms, specifically with the fire movement, but it can be other things too. So that's what makes me restless, is I want to make the world a better place. I want to leave it better off than where I started in. And this is one way I feel like I can do that.
Well, I very much appreciate your passion, your vision for your life, and the way that you're giving back. And thank you for doing that via this podcast. How can people get a hold of you if they want to talk with you about their finances?
The best way to get in touch with me is I have contact pages on my website at fireyourcareer.com. I'm also on social media, so you can find me on LinkedIn. I also have Instagram, and there are links to all of those on my website as well. But the website is the best place to start.
Excellent. I'll make sure it gets in the show notes. Thank you
Great.
so much. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Julie. It's been great to chat with you.
All right. We'll see you later then.
Take care.
Julie Noonan here. Thank you so much for listening to Roaming with Restless Women. If you're a successful senior woman leader who would like to be on this program, please visit podcast.intuitivewisdomcoach.com. If you enjoyed this interview, please share this episode on social media and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Your thumbs ups and reviews go a long way.